know that he was a lot of fun. You wouldn't want to see you all sitting there crying. I wish I could conjure up that smile and the way that he moved. It was magnetic and drew people to him. So while we're here today, there are no rules for how we do this. If you feel like crying, cry. If the person next to you is crying and you don't know them, hug them. This is his tribe. We need one another to get through this. There is only one thing that's certain here today. This too will change. Our job is to be present with every emotion that arises in this gathering in the honor of William John Beckwith, 1975 to 2013. So we've got a number of folks who've known Billy over the course of his life, various chapters. And we've asked a number of them to speak. The first person we'd like to invite to talk is Uncle Tim, who came to our farm on the coast of Maine in the 1970s. And took on the role of my father's helper and assistant and friend, and became an inextricable part of our family. He was there the day that Billy came home for the first time. Please welcome Timothy Winship.
Hi. First I want to say thank you to Christian and Amy and everyone else who put this all together in such a short amount of time. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All under the weight of an unbearable heartbreak, so thank you for that. And yeah, I'm Tim, Billy's uncle. And there was no way I was going to do this without writing it down. So, as Christian mentioned, the day Billy was born, I was working on the family farm in Maine, and I remember standing by the road in front of the farm stand when Bill appeared over the rise in the road from Rockland, the car kind of weaving, and he pulled in with a cigar in hand to announce Billy's birth, and he was very happy. And Billy's first act of generosity or kindness in this world was to be born 6 days after his grandmother, my mother, our mother, died of cancer. So in a mysterious call and response, his coming into the world helped to keep our attention on life in the midst of the pain of our mother's leaving. And now the call is Billy's death, and we respond. And this last act of his has also had in it a generosity, because it's driven away a lot of inessentials in our lives and revealed so much love. And Christian asked for stories, and one is when Billy, sometime in his early 20s or so, was visiting our farm in southern New Hampshire, and he and I were out picking beans, and he was chatting away while we were picking. and he was chatting. He was picking effortlessly, faster than anyone I'd ever had on the farm picking beans. And he was a true farm boy. And at one point he looked up and he looked around our 6-acre field. He said, "I could hoe this whole thing in a day." And I was skeptical, but I've always remembered and loved that just totally brash confidence. And then this is from a note he sent to us in 2000 when he was living in New York City, which I think was an odd chapter in his life. But it says, "Tim, Julie, and Sarah, so you sold my last chance of escaping. I had many dreams of leaving this city in the little truck." He had a little truck that he thought of buying. "But I need to stay here, so I'm glad it's gone and at a much better price than I would have paid." New York is the best and the worst all day long. Also, most likely the worst difficult place I've ever been. And for right now, the best. I've started interning for a dance newspaper, unpaid, got to start somewhere. And I may have an agent for sell your soul work. Good pay if I can act like a geek. Today has been a rest day. Botanical gardens, bike riding through the park, watching the sunset behind the Statue of Liberty. My back has been horrible. Dance is unfathomable. I'm going to volunteer production assistant for a short movie. First you volunteer, then hopefully you get paid. I would like to volunteer forever and never worry about money. It destroys so many good intentions. Christian's coming, and for Thanksgiving, we may go to Maine to eat. What are you all doing? It was good to see you and spend some time. I took a yoga class the other day. Very groovy. Lots of feel-good stuff. It was a load of shit. But there are many teachers, ... So enjoy the fall. Say hi to the earth for me. Much love, Billy. And finally, in thinking about this when Christian was asking for stories and memories and to embark on that whole process, what I kept coming back to over and over again and thinking about Billy wasn't so much individual stories about him, plus I saw him infrequently over quite a few last many years. But I kept coming back to thinking how I can't separate Billy out from his family. And so, for me, the main story will always be Devin, Bill, and Christian, Amy, Natalie, and Billy. And I love you all.
How many of you have kids? It's relentless. We have one. Copious amounts of help. We barely get through a single day. Love her to pieces. And every once in a while I think back on my mom, who had 4 of us. And back then we were all just so poor. Nobody had any money, any resources. How she did it is a miracle I'll never understand. And one part of that miracle is our sister Amy. One of her responsibilities was taking care of her little brother. She has something to say.
I don't want to be here. And I don't want to be talking to all of you. I want to be home in Albuquerque. And I'm really, really, really sad right now. But I'm going to try to read this to you and do the best that I can in honor of my little brother. I, like Tim, had to write this down. I stand before you wanting to say something profound, deeply wanting to convey to all of you how much I truly, truly loved my little brother. I want to dig deep in my soul and pull out one adventure, one completely touching moment to share with you. But I just can't. I can't do it because for me, it wasn't just one adventure, one moment, one day. It was a lifetime. It was 38 years of calling Billy my little brother. It was the times on the farm when he was just so little that he needed someone to care for him. We grew up on a busy farm. We were all really busy. My parents worked really hard to provide for the 4 of us children. So I was required to help raise my little brother. One of my responsibilities that sticks in my mind all the time is that it was my responsibility to help bathe Billy. And I remember in the evening I would say, "Come on, Billy, come on, it's bath time, come on." And he hated to take a bath, hated it. And he would fight me and fight me. And finally he would relent and he'd go into the bathroom and I would sit there in the living room and I could hear the water running. But I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 times, I would go and check on Billy, and he'd be sitting in the middle of the bathroom playing with his trucks and his cars, and the water would just be running, and he wouldn't be in the shower or the bath. And those are the times that I remember. It's the years I remember, how consistent he was. He was always there for me. I graduated from high school, and he was there. From college, and he was there. My wedding, he was there. For each and every baby I had, he was there. And God, he loved my babies. He would come to Albuquerque and he would hold them and spend hours holding them, and they would hand them to me and he said, "Thank you for reminding me why I never want to have a baby." So my memories with Billy weren't without sadness and challenges. Living on the farm brought a mix of many emotions. But these were memories that I will forever hold in my heart. So I'm taking a walk or I'm holding my child's hand, I'll remember Billy. To me, Billy was my Billy Booch Diddles, and I called him Billy Booch Diddles all the time. And I remember one day he turned to me and he said, "Amy, you cannot call me Billy Booch Diddles in public anymore." So no more my sweet brother, but forever he'll be my little brother. Thank you.
So I was the oldest, Amy was second, Billy was our little brother, and Natalie was our middle sister. She's the one who took care of us. She'd like to say something now.
Oh. So as you all know, Billy was poetic in so many ways. In the way that he worked and played and loved. It was poetry. He actually wrote poetry, and I found 2 poems that he wrote that really, they spoke to me about the experiences on the farm, which to me it is so, I think it has formed all of us so much. These sound a little harsh, and I think that they speak to probably the not as fun parts of the farm, but they were beautiful, and I wanted to share them with you. You taught me to drive at 8, too short to see, plowing through potato rows, worried I'd ruin the crop that never came, 'cause the goddamn rain always falls to the east of us. We'd watch from the porch, clouds mounding above the pines. You were always silent. I'd wish away my happiness for a downpour. And then a second one. Winter brought wind and cold blankets. In fall you cut ash for firewood. Baby pigs born too late lay in a box beside the stove, little pinks. The picture of me holding one against my almost leather jacket. You'd cut wood for weeks. We'd all warm and watch the news, Mom sitting in the kitchen, another dinner cooled. So just to you, Billy B, I love you so much. And thank you for all the lessons that you've taught us. And I want to thank all of you guys for loving him so much. You made his life really, really meaningful. I'm so glad he was so well taken care of by all of you. So thank you.
Okay, who's freezing? This is Billy's jacket. Who wants Billy's jacket? Just put it on. Yeah. More jackets back there. We're not martyring ourselves. I've got Billy's jacket, so I'm warm right now. Whack! The 15-gallon white plastic bucket that we used to pick peas and beans hit me squarely between the legs. In a moment, I was on my knees, bent over, my vision going dark at the edges. Above me stood a 12-year-old boy, a wiry, tow-headed little blonde with a ski jump nose, tentatively poised for flight in case I got up. It was my brother, Billy. Behind us lay a dozen years of fighting, or more accurately, brotherly torture, inflicted always by me on him. 7 years my junior and 2/3 my size. Last time that happened. I beat him up with such regularity that a smack on the head or a hurled projectile had become second nature. So had his flinching response. But now I was in the dirt, moaning in pain. For the first time, he'd hit back. As he waited in the dusty sunlight, hesitating between triumph and the need to run, something flipped. The intimidation that had characterized the first chapter of our brotherhood had ended. And the next chapter, respect, had begun. In 1992, Natalie spent a year studying in Spain, and late that winter, the family traveled to Sevilla to visit. I was 22, Billy 15. One evening, Billy and I walked along the narrow, rain-slicked, cobbled streets. Ahead of us lay a bar. Want to grab a drink? I asked. We dipped in. Some American students gathered in a corner in pods. Spaniards spilled out of the tables. It was Billy's first time out of the country and his first time in a bar. We sidled up and ordered a round. Dos cervezas, por favor. Halfway through the pint, the surrounding conversation began to move into Billy. His body responded in choreographed, fluid twitches. A smile began somewhere near his sternum and worked its way up to his lips. It was lovely. A warm, gracious smile that made me want to move closer. Then, that laugh. Head thrown back, air expelled from the lungs in compressed bursts, teeth shining. It made me laugh too. Damn, my little brother was fun. Thus began our next chapter, as friends. Back on the farm, I wrote Billy into my adventures. We'd bought multicolored rock shoes and a cheap cord that we didn't know how to use, drilled holes in rocks culled from the fields, bolted them to the barn walls, and traversed above the mud on our homemade climbing gym. Inside the barn, we bolted a route right up the roof, then proudly invited our parents to watch us on our first ascent. With Billy belaying and Mom and Dad getting their first introduction to this whole climbing thing, I made it up the vertical wall, then launched into the 45-degree roof. 10 feet out, body convulsing as I lurched from hole to hold, I whipped, slamming into a sharp rock hold with my ribs. Billy, his 120-pound frame yanked off the barn floor by the force, caught me. Somehow, the eye bolt that we drilled into the roof slats held. "Lower me," I gasped. "Christian," Mom exclaimed. "Christian! Billy, is it supposed to be like this?" "I think so," he said. His saucer-wide eyes shuttled from her face to mine. I widened my eyes in response. "Yes," he said to my mom. That was the start of our best chapter. Partners in crime. What followed was 20 years of adventure, that would have appalled our mother if she'd ever known about it. Youthful, passionate, wild, dangerous, vibrating fun, roots and mountains and road trips and parties, and always the interior dialogue of two brothers trying to figure out life and their place in it. While Billy worked his way through high school, I settled into the rhythms of Jackson Hole. In the Tetons, I had the mountains of my dreams. A job slicing bagels at the bagel shop and a corner in an old log cabin. Billy had no immediate plans for college. When he graduated, I invited him to join me. One night around a campfire, Billy asked if there's anything special about the two of us, if there was anything that differentiated us from everybody else in the world. No, I said, I don't think so. We're not that much smarter. We're more creative, we're kinder, we're more compassionate than anyone else. But I think we have one advantage, I told him. We've got heart. And if we're willing to follow it, we can be special. Billy followed his heart with every molecule of his being. When he was happy, it exuded from him like sunshine, drawing friends and strangers toward him to bask in his warmth. When he was sad, his sadness draped over him like wet canvas, imbuing his movements with leaden weight. To call him an actor ignores that his actions originated at a molecular level. To call him a dancer misses that it was his body's organic response to life itself that animated his movement. He didn't act. He didn't dance. He responded. And he was always drawn to the experiences that sucked those molecules straight out of his pores the most. When we got together as a family, Billy could sometimes feel absent, edgy, not completely there. Physically, he'd stand beside us, but emotionally, he'd be somewhere else. I know where he was. He was in a place where life was electric, and the outcome was both uncertain and completely in his own hands. That was when he switched completely on, and the further he had to go to find those moments, the more switched on he became. We are born into our family, but we choose our tribe. Billy's tribe comprised men and women who, like him, wanted life without the makeup or costumes. That I was both his brother and his tribe is the greatest honor of my life. On March 1 this year, I was involved in a ski mountaineering accident. When the avalanche swept down, I moved left. My friend Jared didn't. When the avalanche stopped, Jared was gone. At the base of the couloir, I knelt next to Jared in the snow. Time slipped its usual bounds, and slowly, ever so slowly, I came to see that the body beside me was no longer Jared. Where Jared was majestic, it was broken. Where he vibrated with passionate joy, it didn't move. I looked up the couloir and at the clouds that continued to shift above it. A light gathered in the spot where he called out the warning that saved my life. As the clouds transformed, I could feel his soul moving among them with the levity of a child running through Valhalla. I experienced a spectrum of emotions that day: agony that my friend was dead, sorrow for taking Jared from his wife and his brother, guilt for the ego and ambition that had spiked our adventures. But most of all, I felt gratitude for the opportunity to be with him when he died, for the chance to grieve with him completely, and for the understanding that there is no connection between body and soul. Before the helicopter came, sitting beside Jared in the snow, I called the one person whose knowledge of me was absolute. There was only one person whom I could share what had happened. I called Billy. Before Monday, my deepest regret was that the closure I received that day with Jared was not one I could transfer to his family. Now my deepest regret is that I didn't have the same chance to be with Billy when he died. I really hope they've already hooked up and are on a great adventure, because they're two of the most fun, best people I know. In our deepest griefs, we're stripped to our most essential. The walls we erect and the masks we wear to protect us are torn away. We are, in these moments, completely vulnerable. And in that vulnerability lies a singular opportunity. If you believe that the goal is to leave this place better than when you got here, to always evolve toward happiness, toward love, toward light, then you can let the vulnerability you feel now alter your life. Let yourself be affected by Billy's loss. Feel your heart break as you yearn for his laughter, his foolishness, his elegance, his smile. Surrender completely to the power of his death. Let your tears flow until your head hurts from the crying. Hold the person next to you as they cry, even if you don't know who they are. The more we yield to the powerlessness that grips us now, the greater the chances will be changed for the better when life resumes. This is a marathon, not a sprint. In a week, maybe two, the familiar rhythms will begin to pick up. For those of us at the nucleus of Billy's life, though, that's when it's going to start to get hard. The process of grieving is a journey of years. The Tibetan word bardo refers to a transitional period between lives. Soon, we're going to be in the bardo, no longer able to see the shore of the lives we knew when Billy was still alive, and not yet able to see the farther stretch of the shores of solid ground we will hope one day to reach. When Billy died, I thought I'd know how to do this. Thanks to Jared, we've been wandering these valleys of grief for the last 9 months. I've got no fucking idea what to do. I miss Billy so badly. My heart is shattered. I'd give anything to have my partner, my friend, my brother back. Saudade is a Portuguese word. It has no direct translation in English. Saudade is the love that remains after someone is gone. For those of us who love Billy, there's only saudade now. Billy lived with a richness that encompassed many chapters. One of those chapters was college, which itself entailed many chapters. One of those colleges was Prescott, and one of the people who became his friend and his confidant in Prescott is Marianne. Marianne would like to say something now.
As most of you know, Bill was into extreme sports. But some of you may not know that he was also into extreme stillness. When we were in a class together in Prescott, which is where I first met him, we were asked to make a poster. It was an eco-psychology class at Prescott College. A message that we wanted to send to the world. This was his message. I instantly thought he was a genius. A man who's in touch with himself, his emotions, and is scoffing at society's ideas of what men should feel about fear. What a contrast to what you see in the media about no fear. About every couple of years, Bill would skirt off to a long meditation retreat and sit from like 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. I did one of them and I didn't go back. He kept going to these retreats. So in honor of the many, many hours of stillness and sitting that Bill did, I just wanted to take the opportunity for us all to do some quiet meditation together. Actually, since he knew how to focus on his carpentry, on his dance, on his rock climbing, he just had this intense focus, and I feel like his mastery and precision was in part due to his discipline and his ability to be quiet. So I'd like to ask everybody to take a moment of silence together in emptiness, feeling our tremendous loss and the physical absence of Bill in our lives. You can pay attention to your breath and feel any hollowness that you have in your body. Now I want to invite you to think about Bill, smiling at you with his infectious smile and twinkling in his eyes. You can put your hand on your heart and start to feel the ways that Bill's spirit is inside of you. Allow that fullness to spread throughout your body, and know that each one of us is ignited with Bill's spirit. Bill will never be gone as long as we carry his spirit forward with us. I'd like to share a poem that a good friend of his that couldn't be here today, Chun Yu, wrote from China. They actually block Facebook in China, so she couldn't see any of the stuff going on. Walking in the deep fog in China, I could not see what's close. You came to my mind. I asked, "How is Bill?" We've been friends for long. Whenever we see each other, we put our arms around each other. Mine around your waist, yours around my shoulder. She was short. And we walk side by side. Before dawn and the sunshine, I was waken up by a phone call from your side of the world. She said, "You were gone." In the fog of life, I reach out my arm. You are not there. You are there. Today we walk side by side in the China camp.
During his journey through Prescott, he discovered dance, formally. And with Marion's help, today we have the pleasure of introducing to you the person that introduced to Billy dance. And I can't remember her name.
Delisa.
Balisa?
Delisa.
Delisa Miles.
With Bill, I told him to quit walking like a farmer. I told him to find a little lightness. My other class with Bill, I took him out in nature. It was called Nature and Dance. And Bill loved to get into nature. He loved to get into water. He loved to get into dirt. He loved to lay on the rocks. He loved to climb the rocks. He loved to slide down the rocks. And one time we were in the garden and he said, "I've made a dance." And it was to happen at a certain time. 1:30, we were supposed to find him in the garden. So we went into the garden and he didn't seem like he was there. But then we saw the earth start moving and a little tiny straw and Bill, the mud man, rises out of the earth. And then I got it. He's dancing like a farmer. He is a farmer. Bill made us laugh. I was sorry to lose him. One day, a ballet company came to Prescott, and I thought, "You're not a ballet dancer." But he said to the ballet master, "What can I do to become good at ballet?" And he said, "Leave Prescott." So I think he went to New York City after that. I haven't seen Bill for many, many years. I learned of his death yesterday. agree with you all.
Billy could dance, and he could also roar. And one of his greatest roars was with Jason Lakey. Jason, come on up.
Hey everybody, sorry we have to be here today. I'm a friend of Billy's since 1995. I'm a good friend of his. I went to a coffee shop this morning and wrote down some stuff about my adventures with Billy and my experiences with him. It's kind of long-winded, but here it goes. We're gathered here today to remember, honor, and say goodbye to our friend and our relative, William John Beckwith. Many of us just called him Billy. We're not ready to say goodbye to you, Billy, but we have to, because this is how life works. Every life has a beginning and an end. Physically, you have left us, but our memories of you and your spirit will live on within us forever. I first met Billy in Missoula, Montana through the sport of climbing. I was new to the sport, but Billy was not. He was talented, strong, and bold, and I knew right away he was a real climber. He was ribbed, handsome, and very good at rock climbing. I was initially shy and intimidated around him, as I was 19 and still uncomfortable in my skin, especially as a climber. Quickly, though, I found Billy to be kind, goofy, and almost as insecure as I was, which seemed silly for a guy so strong, handsome, and talented. We climbed and hung out on a casual level for the next year or so. In the winter of 1995, Billy, our mutual friend Andy, and I all went on an overnight backcountry ski trip to the Little St. Joe cabin in Montana's Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. We summited Little St. Joe Peak and bonded beyond a superficial level. About a year later, Billy and I reunited once again in Missoula, Montana. We found each other young, free, and ready for random adventure. We met for coffee one morning. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but we hastily committed to an absurd and loose plan to drive south as soon as possible. Our plan was to road trip south to Albuquerque, New Mexico, ditch Billy's truck, and head south into Mexico by bicycle. In my mind, I had the specific goal of pedaling from Texas to Guatemala or Belize. I believed Billy could care less about a goal. He was in it for the journey and not the destination. We traveled south in Billy's truck, leaving the Montana winter behind. At 22 years old, we had nothing to lose. We were ready for adventure with no rules and no holds barred. We road tripped and rock climbed our way south. We stayed with Billy's brother in Golden, Colorado, climbing at El Dorado Canyon and Table Mountain. We continued south to stay with his sister in Albuquerque. We climbed a wild and scary face high in the Sandias Mountains. The climbing road trip southbound was an adventure in itself. After about a week in Albuquerque at Billy's sister's, our last-minute preparations for our planned bicycle trip were complete. Just before Christmas, we left most of our stuff cached in Albuquerque and traveled light, southbound, by Greyhound bus. We took the Hound as far south as it would go, to the seedy border town of Brownsville, Texas. We unloaded our bicycles and gear from the bus and found a place to stay for the night. Upon checking into our accommodations at Hotel Economico, we realized we were at a brothel. Our adventure of a lifetime had just begun. This was not going to be a wholesome, thought-out, REI-style adventurous vacation, but rather a full-on, fear and loathing style epic. Next morning we started south in a downpour with a $2 map of Mexico purchased last minute at a gas station. It was a total rush crossing the Rio Grande into Mexico on bicycles straight into a rainstorm. I could go on and on about the details of this adventure, and honestly, Billy and I could have written a book. We had a truly wild time pedaling south by our own human power, discovering both ourselves and another culture. Our adventure was an epic for sure, and in that epic, in that spirit of adventure, our friendship was bonded for life. Even after our Trans-Mexico bicycle epic, we continued to share adventures in rock climbing through our lives. We scaled wilderness big walls in Montana, rotten basalt towers in New Mexico, the granite of Arizona, the red sandstone spires of Utah. Our last climb we shared was the ultimate, a 4-day vertical journey up the holy grail of rock climbing, the mega Yosemite monolith El Capitan. That was our last adventure together. How perfect, how fitting. I'm proud of our friendship. I'm proud of our adventures. Billy was one of a kind. Every day in his life was an adventure, the chance to push his limits. We all shared this with him. When people push the limits of their comfort zones together, whether in a ballet class or on a giant mountain face, their friendships become tighter and more meaningful. Billy's zest for life as a daily adventure has branded us forever with his energy. We all shared a higher state of living with and through him. His spirit is a part of all of us. We could go for it with him because we trusted him. We knew he had our back. Billy lived so intensely that his relationships in life too have been next level and extraordinary. We've all been with Billy for the ride in one way or another, and what a ride it has been. Billy, I just want to say there's no one like you. No one so real, so curious. You were badass and gritty, yet so gentle, loving, and caring. You were so brave, so creative. Your personal diversity was incredible. I knew you to be both a kickboxer and a ballet dancer, an artist and a big wall climber. You loved nature and wilderness, and yet you were successful as a charismatic host on the television program Curb Appeal. We all felt your peaceful calmness and the fire of your life's intensity. You rocked. You lived like you knew your life would be foreshortened. You wanted every experience you could get your hands on. You left us in your prime, healthy, strong, and beautiful. We will never understand why. We'll always love you, Billy. We'll always remember you. Your spirit has touched us all. We'll see you on the other side, Billy. Adios, amigo. Namaste.
Is Ariel here? Yes? No? Yes? Hi. So, what happens when you're charismatic, beautiful, tall, funny, great smile, great nose, great cheekbones, talented? You get a lot of women. Billy didn't. One or two, maybe, but as with everything else in life, he was able to connect with people that were beautiful both inside and out, and one of them is Ariel.
It's really beautiful here. And I am so blessed to have spent many times with Bill out in nature and felt like I wanted to speak to all you and to speak to the Beckwiths about someone I love dearly and just share just a couple thoughts I had about him. This is one of my favorite poems. It's short, and I read it to Bill and he loved it. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Bill, I've known you a long time and loved you every second of our chronicle together. You were the most singularly independent person I know. I have never known someone who truly lived from his gut and translated that into locomotion in his life like you. You knew who you were. Money and fancy things didn't matter to you. The mountains mattered. Making things with your hands mattered. Bringing people together mattered. The people in your life mattered. I didn't always understand you. You were mysterious and mercurial, but I did know you very well. You gifted me with all parts of you. Here are the things I loved about you. Your hands, big, strong, and like a puppy dog. Your laugh, the first note and crack of it, followed by your beloved smile. Your surprising sensitivity, unpredictable and unassuming. Your even more surprising vulnerability. You were funny, though shockingly at times, and demanded humor in others. You always made me laugh when I was determined to frown. Your capacity to be reasonable when others spoke their truth. You understood the messiness of being human. Your curiosity, Bill. You were curious and open to other ways and other types in all directions, even in yourself. Your love of dance and movement and the ease with which you did it. You made danger exciting. With you as my teacher, I learned to harness my own courage on the rock walls all over California and beyond. You blossomed in nature, petals opened, and it was radiant. Your creativity and poetry in the swipe of your tools on a piece of wood, your dream to act. Your hungry mind. You climbing always and everywhere. Your deep interest in people and your disarming insight about myself. Bill, guide us through this time we have left on this planet. Guide us to fucking rock it out and do it without caring so much about what others think. Bill, guide us away from the emptiness we feel where you were. I am profoundly aware of how much living there is left to do, and he would want us to remember that. We will all meet you in the corners of the world less traveled, the dirt roads that look like they are fun, the rock walls that are begging to be scampered up, and the words of comfort and kindness for one another. I love you and will miss you, Ariel. And I just want to say it's just amazing to be here with his community and to celebrate just an incredible human being.
Billy's compassion is something we all cherish, but he wasn't really into normal people. He liked them a little crazy, a little willing to push it out, get in trouble. One of those people that pushes it out a lot, and did so in Billy's company with some great regularity, is Jeff Johnson.
I didn't hang out with Billy socially in a traditional sense. We were climbers, and it's kind of an antisocial game. It's two guys on a wall, two guys in a van, two guys next to a creek. It's not a very social atmosphere, but we lived in two separate towns. I lived down south in Santa Barbara, and we would meet up in Yosemite, and kind of our system was we'd talk and we'd meet up, and when I'd get there I'd have my van full of my crap, and Billy would just have his motorcycle with 2 saddlebags and a couple things, and we'd start talking about what we wanted to climb, and I'd pull out my book and I'd have all my little climbs I want to do, like, hey, let's do this little thing at the Cookie Cliff, or maybe we can go kind of crag at this little place, and Bill would be like, no, grab your haul bag, we're going on the Leaning Tower, or we're going up El Cap today, and it always just scared the shit out of me. I was like, never ready for any of it. And so we'd spend a couple hours deliberating on what to do, and I was like, I'm not strong enough, I'm not ready, I can't do this, And his whole thing was like, the time is now. Like, what are you gonna do? Wait? Why wait? The time is right now. Get your haul bag, we're going. So because of that, I spent some of the greatest days of my life with Bill. Forcibly. But we climbed a lot of good routes, and just had some great times over the years, and I always thought about how we didn't really spend a lot of time in each other's lives, but as a climber, you really get to know somebody. You tie in with them, and you're tied in for life, and it's kind of like being married, Bill. It's like, we had our ups. You have your good days, you have your bad days, you have your days where sometimes you're bear hugging on a peak, and sometimes you're arguing about something, or it's just kind of like a marriage, and you complement each other's weaknesses and strengths, and so over the years I felt I really, like, I knew him like a brother, and Christian wanted me to tell a bunch of stories, or if I had a few stories, but they're two guys on a wall talking. Most of them were kind of X-rated stories. Two guys, you get together, it's just kind of shit talking all the time, but there wasn't really one story that stood out, but I, thinking a lot about it, I always think when somebody dies, they leave something behind very valuable, and it's always something different, I think, and it's more than just a silver lining. It's a gift, a true gift that they leave, and I think with Bill, what I'm taking from it is, the time is now. You don't wait, and I think it's something to think about. It's like, don't wait to tell that person you love them. And don't wait to climb that wall. Don't wait to do that trip with your family. Don't wait to go hug a friend. Just do it now. And that's what I'm taking away from this, and it's a good thing. So just wanted to share that with you guys. And throughout the years, I took pictures of Bill all the time, and I'd like to take a picture of everybody here if we could.
Billy's favorite.
Everybody.
Well, Billy's journey's obviously led him around the world, and it was interesting to watch him choose this place. He's been here 12 years now. 12 years? Is that right? We don't know some of you as well as we'd like to. We're so incredibly stunned by the compassion that you've shown us over the course of the last few days as we arrived in this place he chose as his last place. No more so than the person that helped us choose where we are today. David drove around with my mom and my dad and I a couple of days ago, yesterday, when was it? And we came upon this spot, and he's pulled this all together, and we are grateful. And he lives here, and he's one of yours, and now he's one of ours too. David.
I'm not one for mics, so I really don't like the way I sound. But when Christian asked me to speak, the first thing he said is, "Don't cry." I don't know if that's going to happen. When Christian asked me to speak, I thought it was a great honor. Just having met everybody, or most of you in the last few days. So I went home, like most of you did, to write down a few thoughts and stories, and I realized that it really isn't any words that you can put down on paper to embody someone you love. And then I look around here at all the people that Bill brought together, and I think that is stronger than words. If you look at the people next to you, near you, touching your arms and your shoulders, that's who really Billy is. And that's nothing that I could say. That's everything that he did in his life to bring all of you together. So I dropped the words that I had, and I want to just mention a story or two that meant a lot to me. And it isn't the joke and the humor that I want to talk about. It was his compassion. It was the love that he had for those that he welcomed into his life. When that door opened, I ran through. And as some of you know, in our climbing circle, I've battled health issues for a long time. And only recently, those health issues come back stronger than ever, stronger than they have in quite some time. And I was bedridden. And there was one friend who stood by me. He came over every morning to make sure I had food, make sure I had company, and wouldn't leave until I kicked him out, or forced him to. And that was the big heart that Bill had, who was that friend who came every day and would sit by me and do nothing if he needed to. So again, I had to kick him out so he can go on his adventures and create the stories that we joke about today. But it was Bill and his heart that he gave to us and he gave to me that I will never forget. And I know that he was a man of carpe diem, who liked to seize the day, and that all of you had to say some things about. And I probably learned more today in one dance than I have in all the years that I've known Bill. So I can't go without one funny story though, to lighten the spirit. And that's when our friend Amy and Johanna and I decided to go for a bike ride, and Brian and Bill decided to tag along on motorcycles. So we met up, we tried to arrange our ride profile to be at certain locations at certain times. And so we get to a parking lot close to China Camp off of 101. And Johanna and I and Amy are working on our bikes, putting on our spandex, of course, making sure the chain was oiled and the wheels would roll. And in comes these two guys on motorcycles, led by a crazy guy in front. We had no idea who they were. And all of a sudden the lead guy rips a wheelie a few feet in front of our face, and we're like, we looked at each other, me and the two girls were like, what and where? And all of a sudden the guy on that wheelie lost that wheelie. Bike went this way, the rider went that way, and all of a sudden, in Bill's true spirit, and we still didn't know who it was, he jumps up in the Rocky stance with two arms, and we're like, this guy definitely is crazy. And off came the helmet, and on came the smiles for the rest of us. And that really was Billy seizing the day, and never getting wrapped up in his own devices or work, but really enjoying every moment he had, whether crashing on his wheelie or making us smile every day. And that's how I love it.
There were a lot of rivers that Billy floated, walls that he climbed, mountains he went up, snowboarded down, sometimes with clothes on, sometimes without clothes on. My wife and I went on vacation last November, and we went to Nicaragua with our daughter, and as it so happened, it coincided with Billy's one of two great adventures. I thought the time that he went with Jason on their rickety bikes down to Guatemala was one of his great adventures, and this last one was a bike ride which you all know about, from San Francisco to Ushuaia. And so we were in Nicaragua, and as it so happened, it was about the time that he would be rolling through. So somehow he convinced his buddies that it made sense for him to take them on a detour to see us. We had a little surf joint. He comes rolling in, it's my brother. He's on his way to Ushuaia on a great adventure that made me so proud that he would jump on that bike and point it for months and just go. So he takes his helmet off and is like, oh, rotten chicken. Green as could be. I don't feel so well. Like, you all right? I hang a rotten chicken. And so it was already toward dusk. It gets dark at around 6 there, and we had a place for him, so we got him to the cabana and gave him a bucket. And the guys and joined us. We all had dinner, and he went to sleep, and in the morning he got up. He was all bleary-eyed. He slowly got a little bit better. His eyes sort of opened. And he said, okay, let's go. And they left. That was it. And he went to Ushuaia on one of the great adventures of his life. And I am so proud of him for going on that adventure. And I asked somebody from that group to come and tell a little bit about that last great adventure of Billy Booch Diddles. Scott was nominated. So Scott, come on up.
Wow, I can't see any of you. All I see is a silhouette in the front of my face. It's awesome. So, good afternoon. My name is Scott Rossi. Bill and I were good friends. I feel like I should state my disclaimers early on. If what follows is somewhat irreverent, it's not meant as disrespect. Rather, it's meant to honor the person I knew Bill to be. So we're all here today because we love Bill. It's an obvious thing to say, but his life ended too soon. I, for one, miss him already. For example, I miss his smile, the way he'd say, huh, to acknowledge something he'd say. His sage advice, like this, that I pulled out of my text message history a few days ago. This conversation is sort of a grown-up conversation, so if you're under 13, maybe cover your ears for a second. Bill said, "What's up today? Afternoon beer?" I said, "I have a date at 7 in Sausalito. I might have a nap now." Bill said, "Cool, rub one out so you're not all pervy on her." So, you're probably wondering why I told you that story. Well, we probably all know that's just Bill, and if you haven't gotten your phone to read all text from Bill, you should remember to do that, because you're going to laugh and cry at the same time. The other reason is that when Bill's brother Christian and I discussed me sharing my memories of Bill with you all today, he offered that, given who we're talking about, we better keep this fun, laugh a lot, not have any blubbering messes up here. So I want to get out up front that by the end of this I might be that blubbering mess, but by the time this is over, you'll also at least have laughed once with Bill's text stories, and you can go find your own. Truthfully though, if I don't cry today, if most of you don't cry today, it would be a miracle. And honestly, it would be its own separate tragedy. The new hole in our lives brought on by Bill's death is worthy of more than a few tears. But Christian is right too. If we cannot all smile and laugh here today, talk about Bill, then we're a bunch of liars. Bill was a funny son of a bitch with a hell of a quick wit, and if you didn't laugh long, hard, and often with him, he might not have liked you that much. So all that said, I thought I'd talk a little bit about my friendship with Bill. We met only a few years ago through our mutual friend Dave Alfaro. I was at a crossroads professionally and personally and quit my job to travel around the world and gain some perspective on life and to have an adventure and to make sure I was in touch with the things that were really important in life. In retrospect, I couldn't believe that Bill may have had some of the same motivations for the trip we eventually took together. So about 9 months into the trip that I was taking around the world and had spent time in Asia and Europe, I decided to spend a few months back in San Francisco. Bill and I reconnected, and I really don't know how it happened, but he invited me to come along on the moto trip he was planning to South America. You see, I wasn't any kind of a moto guy. I didn't even own one. But Bill didn't mind, though I may have cleared into my lack of experience could be a huge liability. I guess the connection we had, and I know many of you had with him as well, allowed us to be comfortable with the unknown of it all. We eventually turned out to be 4 on that trip, but at the moment I decided to go, we were only 2. Probably to make sure he hadn't made a terrible decision in inviting me along once I actually bought a bike to make sure we did a few multi-day trips together. I guess we got along well enough, and he didn't have to help me pick my bike up too many times, and so we left for South America, Bill, Johnny, Terry, and I. The trip was hard, usually fun. We put in a lot of saddle time, usually riding into the night before calling it a day. 12,000-foot passes in the rain at night somehow became a regular thing for us, as if we somehow sought them out. At either end of the spectrum, you had Bill, who was completely in his element, looking for every possibility he could to find dirt, and me, who, though doing better than I expected, was generally slower than the rest once we were off-road. On the dirt and sand, occasionally one of us would go down, and by that I mean probably me. Bill was always ready to help you pick your bike up if you went down. Right after you got a picture of it, of course. By Ecuador, Johnny had split from the group because he wanted to make it further south and had less time than the rest of us. At some point, I realized I was pushing harder than I wanted to and found Terry to feel similarly. So it was at this point I realized I didn't always understand what drove Bill, what compelled him to push so hard. It's cliche to talk about someone living in the moment and living life on their own terms at memorial service. But with Bill, for good and bad, truer words couldn't be spoken. So while Terry and I slowed the pace some, backed off our original goal of reaching Ushuaia, and took in some beautiful riding through Argentina and Chile, Bill kept his head down, blasting out the miles to reach his goal. True to form, Bill made it to Ushuaia. There's a picture of him there that I love, with his arms raised, mission accomplished. As most of you know, Bill crashed on the way to Ushuaia. What he told us was the most painful crash of his life, and we all know Bill, we know that's saying something. In any case, he headed back north, and the timing was working out that we could meet in Mendoza and close out our trip together, riding the last leg from Mendoza to Chile. Bill reached Mendoza, but he didn't make the last leg of the trip. His spleen had ruptured in his crash on his way to Ushuaia, and the end of his trip was spent in a hospital bed. His spleen removed in a public hospital there, Bill needed 2 weeks to recover before traveling home. Terry and I made the most of Mendoza as we looked after Bill. It's a beautiful city, the weather's good, the wine is cheap, the steak is amazing, and the women are beautiful. Our hotel was a short walk from the hospital. We made several trips a day over there to visit with him. He'd tell us stories about the people in the ward with him, and he'd hope to fart because that was an indicator that things were progressing with his healing. The care was first rate. The doctors and nurses were excellent. The facility, not so much. To be comfortable, the 20-something-year-old kid in the bed next to Bill had brought his mom, who was there with him 24 hours a day, his own sheets, a chair, a fan, and a TV from home. It was that kind of place, and if you didn't have your own stuff, you weren't going to be too comfortable, which is kind of Bill's case. At some point, his underwear went missing, and he was stuck in bed, naked, except for a sheet, with the kid's mom sitting right next to him the whole time. I don't know how that happens. He called to ask that we bring some clothes to remedy this situation, which we did, fighting a strong urge not to leave him that way for a while, and mess with the guy. Terry and I stayed with Bill as long as we could. We knew we had to get us and the 3 bikes back to Chile to fly home. But we also knew Bill was too weak to be left alone, despite his insisting otherwise. We reached out to Yulia and Bill's family. In the end, Yulia came down to be with him and to get him home safely. This is the first time I've mentioned her, but it's no accident it was Yulia who came for Bill. The night Bill died, he and I had dinner together. We talked about new adventures and more mundane things. Just good buddies shooting the shit. Over the time I'd known Bill, I could see how much he and Yulia dug each other. He had mentioned how much he liked the way they interacted, her playfulness, how she could accept it without taking it personally if he ever felt down. I know he really just loved being with her. Of course, as a friend, I looked for ways to make Bill uncomfortable as often as I could, in a way that friends do. So that night at dinner, I asked as obnoxiously as possible, "So when are you guys getting married?" At least half expecting that to lead to a semi-awkward string of denials. It didn't. We talked about his desire to do it at City Hall, with a party here and one in St. Petersburg. at the same time, he said that he'd read somewhere that if you don't give the woman the wedding she wants, she'd resent it forever. So something of a quandary I know he would have worked his way out of. At the end of our night together, Bill and I were in front of my house as he prepared to ride home. Here's what I know to be true. He was super passionate about riding motorcycles. You could feel it when he spoke about them. He even made me get on the one he was riding that night to see what it was like. He was excited to get started on his next adventure. At last, he saw his future tied to that of Julia's. I won't ever completely understand the reasons behind and the way he was driven to strive, but I know on that night, in that moment, he was a happy man. I will always remember his contagious passion for life, his humor, and his friendship. You were a great friend, Bill. To Bill's family and friends, I'm so sorry for your loss, for our loss. I'm honored to have had the chance to share my memories of Bill with you all. Godspeed, Bill. Rest in peace.
As Amy pointed out, Billy was present for the births of all the girls' children. He didn't come for ours. I can't remember why that was. And so one of those delightful little ones would like to say something now. Ava?
It's just a little short poem. Billy. B, beloved. I, intelligent. L, loving. L, lovely. Y, young. Y'all let my Uncle Billy.
There are two people in life that make us who we are. Those are our parents. My dad is the most generous, honest, kind, loving man I've ever known. And my mom, her heart gave us all we needed to make our ways in this world. No parents should ever stand before you and praise their children before they bury them. But now I ask my mother to have the strength to say a final word about her son to you.
Well, I had a feeble little thing written down because how do you put into words what it's like to have had a son like Billy? But I lost it. So it was kind of stiff anyway. I mean, how in the world you say what it was like having a kid like that? It was just like you gave birth to your own best friend. Not best, because I had 4 and they're all my wonderful friends. But I could just talk to him and he'd listen to me and then he'd reflect back to me, what he'd heard and act it through in his life like he cared about what he'd heard. And, he was just such a buddy. And I found myself in so many crazy places with him. I was in a hot spring somewhere, who knows where. And, I mean, just you link up with Billy and you don't know what you're going to be doing next. And I still had control up to a certain age. A certain amount of control, not much. But And then one day, I heard him musing in the background, and he said, well, yeah, I'm going to bike down to Mexico. I'm like, oh, no, you're not. And that was when I found out that I had no control. And he took off down to Mexico, and ever since, it's just, I just sit back and wait and see what he's going to do next. And it's always fascinating, and to have met all you wonderful, wonderful, gentle spirits. I'm so glad he's fallen into so many wonderful, gentle spirits. It's wonderful. And to hear about how gentle, you've experienced him. It makes my heart so full. And I'm so grateful to all of you. And to my son, who I'll always carry him right here. He's not really gone. And thank you so much for coming.
Please close your eyes. Take the hand of the person next to you. Feel the life that flows through them, through you. Inhale. Exhale. Your life force continues. Inhale. Exhale. Imagine Billy the way you loved him most. Find space within to place that memory close the space where you put it. May it be with you until your breath is no more. I love you, Billy. We love you. Namaste.